is Mark Gunn Media.
Hit it!
Welcome to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. I'm your host, Mark Gunn. The views expressed on this program are those of the host and guests and not necessarily reflective of anyone or any entity associated with this broadcast. This episode brought to you by Before Your First Gig, an audiobook written by Steve Dustcircle and produced by Mark Gunn Media. If you're a beginning musician, this is a primer that you'll definitely want to hear. Tips and strategies for setting yourself up for live performances and paid gigs. Before Your First Gig by Steve Dustcircle. Available now on iTunes, Audible.com, and Amazon. Before Your First Gig by Steve Dustcircle. Produced by Mark Gunn Media. This episode, will Bernie get burned again? Why Democrats are in a full-blown panic. Before we go any further, as a means of full disclosure, it has to be noted that I am not a registered Democrat or Republican. I'm an independent voter, and I haven't chosen a candidate to back in this year's election. I can say with 100% certainty that I will not be voting for Donald Trump. So, as of this podcast, Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders is officially the front-runner in the race for the Democratic nomination to become the next president of the United States. He's won the popular vote in all three primaries, with the most decisive being Nevada this past week.
He won among men and women, college graduates and non-college graduates, liberals and moderate/conservatives, union and non-union members, people who decided early and people who decided late. In short, Sanders crushed it.
If you've been watching various news reports over the last few days, Sanders has some Democrats and political pundits really scared.
People in the establishment's jaws are hanging off their faces. Nobody 6 months ago thought we'd be sitting here with Bernie Sanders on his way to the nomination. He's on his way to the nomination. Now, something could happen to stop him. Somebody might have some marbles to throw on the stairs or banana peel. They better find it.
Money?
They better find it, because this guy is off and running. And he's done something extraordinary. First of all, and I'm sure we'll hear about it from you, this is a youth quake. You got a new generation stepping up. They're not scared of any of these ideas, and they're tired of hearing Republicans call everything that we say socialist. So they've ruined the word socialist. It doesn't mean anything for the younger people. You've got the Latinos stepping up now in a major way behind Bernie Sanders. He's running as if he's a Latino candidate now. And these ideas are no longer as scary to a whole bunch of Democratic voters. This could be a disaster for us in the general election. It's hard to know, but this is a phenomenon. And, we got to acknowledge people underestimated Bernie Sanders every step of the way, including today.
Now, if you think back to 2016, Sanders had the same type of momentum going into the convention. Just as he's showing now, back then, he had the support of a majority of younger, first-time voters and people of color. However, the DNC, the Democratic National Committee, had other ideas. They were firmly in the camp of former First Lady Hillary Clinton, and because of that, the fix was in.
The Democratic National Convention here in Philadelphia is in a real twist after WikiLeaks dumped 20,000 emails showing that the DNC actively worked to undermine Bernie Sanders' campaign. Now, we don't know all the details yet, it's a lot of emails, but here's what we have so far. Bernie got screwed. Now, for months, his supporters claimed that the Democratic Party was rigging the election in favor of Hillary Clinton. The head of the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, denied these claims, saying that they were just a wild, crazy conspiracy theory.
There's just no shred of evidence to suggest that I'm favoring Hillary Clinton.
But the WikiLeaks emails show without a shadow of doubt that the DNC was working against Bernie Sanders in all manner of sleazy ways, including using his own religious beliefs against him. And with that, Wasserman Schultz was forced to step down.
Due to their political shenanigans, Clinton ended up with the nomination. Sanders supporters either stayed home or voted for other candidates, and Donald Trump ended up in the White House. Now, you would think that the DNC would have learned its lesson, but appears to me that they haven't. You see, the DNC can't use the same tricks they did before because too many people are watching. They don't want Bernie Sanders as the nominee, so why not get into cahoots with some of the members of the media and try to minimize the impact that Sanders is having by focusing on anything else but Sanders.
I don't understand how Bernie is considered a frontrunner.
In New Hampshire, 52% of voters wanted either Pete Buttigieg or Amy Klobuchar or Joe Biden. Moderates are winning.
Why wasn't Buttigieg's win in Iowa a bigger banner headline? He also has upset Bernie Sanders in both states.
The story of the night, Amy Klobuchar, now in third place.
The story of the Sanders campaign so far this year is how much ground he's lost from 4 years ago.
And then you try to muddy the waters with some political punditry, fuzzy math.
Bernie Sanders may have eked out the most votes in Iowa and New Hampshire. But if you look at the numbers more closely, it shows a candidate hitting a ceiling. If you look at the combined percentages among the centrist candidates, they do much better than the progressives.
When you add up the totals, though, for Pete Buttigieg, Amy Klobuchar, and Joe Biden, that's more than half the electorate backing a moderate.
Buttigieg and Klobuchar and Biden split the moderate vote, with their combined percentage overwhelming that of Sanders, who got 26%.
And when that fails, you trot out a discredited former Democratic strategist turned bat-shit crazy uncle, James Carville.
It's going to be the end of days. So I am scared to death. I really am. There's a certain part of the Democratic Party that wants us to be a cult. I'm not interested in being in a cult. I'm 75 years old. I'm just not a very culty person. The happiest person right now, this thing is going very well for Vladimir Putin. I promise you. He's probably staying up watching us right now. How you doing, Vlad?
One of the things that I constantly knock Democrats for is their relationship with us, the black voter. In a lot of districts, the only time you even see them is when it's time to get out the vote. They visit our barbershops, come into our churches, carry hot sauce in their purses, Hillary Clinton, and continue to blow smoke up our collective asses about how we are the backbone of the party. They end up getting our vote, and then we don't see them again for another 2 to 4 years. One of the things I'm gratified to see is more of us calling them out on their crap and holding them accountable for their lack of attention to our issues. This is especially true of college students like Ashley Harrington, a 20-year-old college Democrats organizer from South Carolina.
I think time and time again, I'm always sick of the candidate that shows up to a church and just walks away. That has always, I'm not calling out any candidate, but that's just a trope that just occurs and occurs. And I'm waiting for the day when Black communities just say, you know what, unless we see what you're doing, you're just not going to do. You're just not going to step foot in this church and just take photo ops with people. What I really appreciate is when candidates actually canvass, go door to door to those communities and actually talk to people, just remind them of dates when they need to vote and actually have voter registrations.
I had an interesting conversation with one of my closest friends last night. He's actually a Democratic state senator in Minnesota and one of the very few politicians I've ever endorsed or have ever done any voiceover work for. You see, I have this long-standing policy of never lending my voice for political campaigns. Anyway, he gets it, and he's at a loss to understand why more elected officials do not see the forest for the trees when it comes to the black vote. During our conversation, I reminded him of the mass exodus of blacks from the Republican Party during the Barry Goldwater campaign of 1964. I also theorized that Democrats could see the same type of thing happening as blacks leave the party en masse. He determined that we could become a very powerful voting bloc, unaffiliated with any political party, and that would probably end the Democratic Party as we know it today. Fast forward a few days to South Carolina and this coming Super Tuesday. This will be the first primary where the voices of black voters will really be heard.
As a college student, I think we all have that one thing for us that is most important for us to vote on. For some people, it's healthcare. For some people, it's reproductive rights. But for me, as a college student about to graduate with student loans on the horizon, student debt is 100% a major concern, an immediate concern.
This will also be the first real test for the Democratic candidates, some of whom don't really have a good track record when it comes to black folks. Some pundits predict that South Carolina could very well cement who the nominee is going to be going forward. Coming up, you're going to be hearing from some of those South Carolina voters who are watching this race very closely for many different reasons. Right after this. If you're an advertiser, one of the most important things about getting your message out is actually standing out from the rest of the crowd. If you're listening to this program right now, this is where you'd hear your commercial. As an exclusive sponsor of Gunshots Straight from the Hip, your commercial is professionally produced and gets a longer shelf life based on your needs. Gunshot Straight from the Hip is a unique and compelling program unlike anything else in the marketplace. Episodes are available for download on iTunes, TuneIn, and markgunmedia.com. And depending on how you tailor your message, the potential for new and repeat customers is that much greater. Best of all, it's extremely cost-effective. If you'd like more information on how you can be a sponsor of this broadcast, call Mark Gun Media, Inc. at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Or log on to markgunmedia.com. For downloads of this and past episodes and information about all the multimedia services we offer, log on to our website at www.markgunmedia.com. That's markgunmedia.com. Welcome back to Gunshot Straight from the Hip. I'm Mark Gunn. We're discussing Senator Bernie Sanders and his frontrunner status in the Democratic primaries.
I like the socialism side of Bernie, which I think a lot of people are scared of socialism because they think it's more like communism, but it's not. It's just like everybody lives equally. And I like the fact of free school and free health care because most of the other countries have this. This makes it hard for our people to move further. It kind of locks some of our people into debts and all kind of things when we're not doing this. So I think our kids should have a better start for their future than debt. And then most of the people can't afford health care. So, my heart goes out to them. That's why I'm going more for the Bernie and Elizabeth, because they're fighting for this.
As I said before the break, South Carolina is going to be the next hotbed in the election. This will be the first state where black voters will be the primary focus, and you'll hear from a few of them who all have different motivations for this election, like 20-year-old college student Faith Dupree.
I feel that it is important for me to vote because people gave their lives in order for us to vote. My vote matters. My voice matters, not just in presidential elections, but for those who's running to represent my voice. As a preacher's kid, I wasn't allowed the opportunity to form my own opinion because of tradition. And I am a tradition breaker. I am the first woman in my family to go to college, whereas my grandmothers, my mother, I'm forever grateful for their struggles, but I chose to go to college and I chose to make sure that I was ready. If I choose to have a family, that's my choosing. As an African American, it's important to voice my opinions on issues that directly affect me and my brothers and sisters because they may not have the same insight as I do. And it's that more important for me to break it down to my brothers and sisters to say, hey, this is how they're running game on you. You need to understand. You need to get out and vote. Everybody's so quick to be revolutionary after something happens. I want to be proactive in it.
For some, like 19-year-old Michael King, this will be his first look at the primary election process.
Honestly, it was a little scary because it's a lot riding on this one, and we have a lot of candidates. We have a lot of candidates this year. So it's a little overwhelming. You got to figure out what everybody is about and then have to narrow it down, pick a person to vote for.
Here's where the candidates stand so far. Joe Biden enjoys the majority of support from black voters because of his relationship with former President Barack Obama. However, there's been a bit of a shift over the last few years. Back in 2016, Bernie Sanders' support among black voters in South Carolina was in the single digits. As of this broadcast, he's just a few percentage points behind Biden. Sanders supporter Donna Thompson.
What I like about Bernie Sanders a little bit, I know, is his ideas, which they call socialism. To me, I don't think that's what it is, but to me, it's more for the people. People like me, the middle class and the working folks, which I think this country is running on our backs and is about to break us.
South Carolina was once a sure bet for Biden, but because of a generational shift, that's no longer the case. Older black voters, women especially, support Joe Biden, while younger voters support Bernie Sanders. Other candidates like Pete Buttigieg have a problematic history with black voters, but still have supporters like Darius Jones, a 30-year-old organizer for South Carolina Black Pride.
I mean, just to see him and his partner go throughout the United States together, hand in hand, spreading the same message of basically love and peace and unity. And honestly, that right there puts him at the forefront for me.
If I've learned anything from the folks in South Carolina while doing the research for this episode, it's that they're paying attention and realize how important they are to the process. Retired teacher Sheila Albergotti is supporting Senator Elizabeth Warren.
You know, if you're going to plan a birthday party, you have to have a plan, okay? Even though that's become pretty cliche that she's saying she has a plan, it's clear. I believe all the other ones that have good ideas, they have now come on board to join some of her ideas as far as taking care of student loans and different things like that. But the point being, she has had a plan. And that's so important. She's been a teacher. You know, if you're a teacher, you have to have your plan at the beginning of the school year. So that is no joke. I am not about folks that have good ideas. I want to see some evidence that you have a plan, that you know what you're going to do to take me from here to there. And so she has a plan for all these different issues that she can show that there is going to be a way for it to be successful. And so that's why I support her.
Contrary to popular belief, we are not a monolith when it comes to voting. Although I personally think that we'd be in a much better position if we were. Getting rid of Trump is the most important issue for folks like small business owner Kenneth Stevenson.
I've voted since I was 18, so I've participated in all the primaries and everything. And I want someone who will defeat the current individual in the White House. Because we have to defeat who's there now. We'll take a chance next time. The revolution has already occurred. So we need no revolution. We need to get him replaced. Period.
But it isn't the only concern South Carolina voters have. Take 51-year-old disabled veteran Travis Washington.
I mean, as a retired military, I'm on single payer. Government-run insurance. I know it works. They know it works. There are some veterans that are 100% that can do some side jobs and make extra money. I'm not one of them. I'm giving every little extra I have for the campaign, trying to hope that Senator Sanders makes it so that he can address these issues, because he wants to address these issues.
One of the biggest initiatives being discussed in the black community this election is the restoration of voting rights for former felons. Jay Sheely served his time and talks about what it means to be able to vote again.
The first time I wasn't able to get my voter registration card due to the fact that I was a felon or whatnot, and I wanted to vote, but I couldn't. Honestly, I feel that it's an honor. I feel that it's my obligation, it's my duty, if this sound right, my rite of passage, because our ancestors never got a chance to. Some of our grandmothers, our uncles, our fathers, our mothers, our sisters, our brothers never really procured the opportunity to actually be a voice. Even though it's a minute voice, it's still a voice nonetheless. And to actually have a say-so in who's supposed to be running or getting it makes a big difference, because the things that's going on now, it can't be prevented with the right people in charge. And if we don't vote and get them in charge, then it's the same chaotic mess that's going to be out here now.
There are also black Republicans that are watching this race closely, even though they don't agree with any of the candidates. Business owner Roger Leaks explains.
I guess they're governed by a platform, a Democratic platform, I guess. But I'm concerned about things like college tuition being paid. I don't think we should even consider anything like that. I'm concerned about things like going to the mailbox and getting my $1,000 check each month, or either $500 check each month. And I'm concerned about Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden and the rest of the guys who are saying that they are going to increase taxes in certain areas to offset and make things affordable to others. Those kind of things worry me, because I think they would hurt the nation and they would hurt me and what little saving I have and what little saving a lot of people have. They wake up one morning to be evaporated, gone.
You know, no matter what side of the political spectrum you fall on or what issues are most important to you, You have to decide who you're going to support when your primary comes. There's a long-held myth about the lack of voter participation in the last election that has to be dispelled. I remember Democrats whining and blaming independents like me who didn't support Hillary Clinton for losing the election. There were quite a few people who chose not to vote altogether. Another lie was that the majority of non-voters were Democrats. Well, there was a recent report that revealed that just as many Republicans, anywhere from 33 to 35%, skipped the election as Democrats. So while I personally have no idea who I'm voting for, I know two things. One, I am voting. And two, I won't be voting for Donald Trump or any Republican for that matter. A reminder, there are quite a few Senate seats up for grabs, including that of Kentucky's resident for brains, Mitch McConnell. So don't get sidetracked by the presidential race alone. There are quite a few worthless senators on both sides of the aisle that need to be sent packing. Keep paying attention, and we'll see what happens this Super Tuesday. A special thanks to the journalists at the Huffington Post for their invaluable contributions to this episode. You've been listening to Gunshots Straight from the Hip. The views expressed are those of the host and guests and not reflective of any business entity or anyone associated with this broadcast. If you have any comments or want more information on how to be a sponsor, log on to our website at markgunmedia.com or call us at 502-407-0283. That's 502-407-0283. Thank you for listening.
Mark Gun Media. No hype, no hoopla, just damn good work.